a few things that I am really thankful for. One is Facebook Marketplace, 2 is Google Translate, and 3 is my cargo bike. My name is BJ. My business is called Junked Up. I'm an American furniture painter living in Copenhagen, and stay with me as we go from this to that. I scored this awesome little cabinet on Facebook Marketplace in Copenhagen for around 150 kroner, which is about 24 US dollars. So it was missing a couple pieces of trim on the top, so I just decided to go ahead and take off all the trim instead of messing with trying to cut some new trim. First thing I did was clean it really, really well to make sure that there was no furniture polish or oils or anything like that on it. Here's a couple other things I'm grateful for: a furniture dolly and an elevator. I live in an apartment building, and when I need to sand anything, I need to take it out to my beautiful courtyard, and thank goodness we have an elevator. I needed to sand all of that glue off where I removed the trim, and since I had my sander out, I went ahead and gave my whole piece a scuff sanding with some 220 grit sandpaper and my Ryobi sander. After cleaning up my sanding dust and then dragging my piece back up the stairs into my apartment, the first thing I did was gave the entire thing a coat of a DIY paint, Farm Fresh. So for that inset door panel, I really wanted to use my Cubano stamp from Iron Orchid Designs. But I'm never one to take the easy way. So I decided I wanted to do a thick paint and then impress the Cubano stamp into the paint. So I used 3 whites, White Swan, Bead Board, and Tarnished Pearl to create a plaster-like finish that I could impress the stamp into. The key to getting a good impression is to, number 1, make sure that you have your paint applied thick so you have enough paint there to make the impression. And number 2 is to just put some uniform pressure on the whole stamp. After my paint was dry, I gave it a light sanding to tackle any rough spots that there may have been. Then I decided to color in my design using watered down DIY paint. So I'm using watered down Summer Crush, watered down Blue Iris, and watered down Queen Bee. And so it kind of makes it look like watercolor. Then I went over all of that with a dry brush of Sandy Blonde. I decided I wanted to do a raised stencil on the area where I had removed the trim, just so it didn't look like it just had removed trim. So I used Summer Crush and a little bit of salt wash and mixed that up to a paste-like consistency and just troweled that over a little stencil. The design didn't come out perfect, but that's okay because I knew I was going to layer paint over the top of that anyway. Once my raised stencil design was dry, I needed to give it a little bit of a light sanding to smooth it out, get rid of all of that sanding dust, and now it's time to start the actual paint job. I'm using my offset palette knife to apply Mermaid Tale and Old 57. Then I used one of my favorite tools, which is a silicone blade or a color shaper, to just move that paint around. So this whole process is open to artistic interpretation. I just use water when I feel like I need to thin that paint to get it to move a little bit, and then I pick different tools. So here I'm using the Dusty brush from Pixie, which is my favorite blending brush to use, and I just use it to kind of blend those colors together a little bit, and again, open to artistic interpretation. So blue iris is like my wild card color. I wasn't sure if I was going to use this color or not, but I'm glad I decided to go for it in the end. I applied it with my offset palette knife and my fingers, and then used water to kind of thin it out a little bit, make it just a little bit drippy, and add a touch of blue to this otherwise turquoise looking piece. Very fancy blending tool that I'm using right there is nothing more than a wool staining pad, and I find that it does a really good job of blending colors together. So now that my paint is still wet, I'm just going to go ahead and use that Cubano stamp again, and this time I'm just pressing it lightly and pulling it back, and what that does is gives me a very faint design in the paint. So as you are watching the time lapse of me doing the same exact technique from start to finish on the top of the piece, it is a very good time for me to tell you to hit that like button. Don't forget to leave a comment if you have any questions, and subscribe if you're feeling crazy. I am really big on details because it takes your painting from good to great. So I used my finger and just applied blue iris in a couple spots. Then I dry brushed over the center panel with a little bit of Mermaid Tale. And now I'm using another one of my secret weapons, which is watered down Summer Crush in a little tiny spray bottle, and then watered down Queen Bee in a little spray bottle, and just spray it to give me a little bit of extra color. Everything was dry. I did a little bit of wet distressing on the top where I did that raised stencil, and just gave my piece an all over very light sanding, just with a fine grit sandpaper to smooth everything out. Added just a little hint of blue iris for shading, and then it was time to seal it up with some clear wax. I say this in every video, but it really does bear repeating. Please do not freak out when you top coat your DIY paint. It's all part of the learning curve. The color is going to really intensify and deepen, and it's going to look blotchy as all get out. Once that wax or your top coat dries, I promise you the blotchiness goes away and it looks fabulous. Wax dried overnight, I just buffed it with a soft cloth the next day, and I am so pleased with this piece, and I think it turned out great. Thank you so very much for watching. I really appreciate you spending time with me today, and I will see you guys next time. Bye.